City of Ventura Fall 2022 Adult Sports Softball Leagues. We've got a great season in store for everybody. Off the top of my head, I want to say we have 110 softball teams signed up for the season. That's Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. I am going to start with some unfortunate news. Due to low enrollment, we are not going to be able to offer the Tuesday night co-ed softball program or the Wednesday night women's softball program. We didn't get enough teams signed up. Not really sure what happened. It is unfortunate. We tried very hard to get more teams to return for that, but sometimes it doesn't work. We'll be bringing those programs back next summer as well, though. So they're not gone forever. If they just need to be summer programs moving forward, that's totally okay. But we are just going to move forward with a Tuesday, Wednesday men's programs and Thursday, Friday co-ed programs. Okay. Throughout the course of this meeting, everybody, we'll be going over a few things. First, what is especially important for the new teams, I'm going to be going over the main website that everybody needs to know and to be a manager in our leagues, which is Team Sideline. And if at any point I make a reference to anything, I will also post a link in the chat so that you have access to it. After going over what Team Sideline is, how it works, we'll be going over rosters and the manager's guide, going over the changes that we've made since last season and the important things to know about leading into the coming season. This is very good for new players, and it's also still a good opportunity for returning teams as well to notify any changes. If you paid for a league that is now canceled, you will receive a refund. Yes, we're not going to keep your money. Sorry, I didn't say that sooner. And then the end of the meeting will be a Q&A. Unfortunately, our head softball umpire had family matters to attend to. Usually he's here and he's able to address rules questions. He understands the rules much better than I do. However, I will do my best to answer your rules questions. If there are any questions I can't answer, I'll take note of them and I'll bring them up with him, and then I'll reply to you, or I'll reply with the answer. Okay. So everyone, at this point now, I'm going to share my screen so that everybody can see what I'm looking at. And it's this. All right. So I'm also going to leave the chat down here. This website is Team Sideline. So for those who aren't familiar, www.teamsideline.com/Ventura. Since you're in this meeting, it means you've registered, or somebody on your team has registered. And this website is the end-all, be-all for adult sports leagues in the city of Ventura. This is where we post links to all of your schedules. We post updates for your team. We do promotion for our other events. If you go to the page right now, it's a little sparse, but you can see right here we're doing a lot of promotion for our leagues, and this does need to come down because our registration window has closed for everything. So after this, it'll just be a quick intro and welcome for everybody. All right, Joey, the good question, I will address it at the end of the meeting. So the first thing, especially for new teams, that you're going to want to do is, if you're on Team Sideline, when you're just type in the address at the top, it'll come to this page here. The thing you're going to need most down here is in this lower left corner, the schedules link. Right now you can see we have fall schedules posted for a few of our events, such as soccer, pickleball, volleyball, and basketball. Still do need to post a few more programs, especially softball. But what you'll do, because I don't have the softball schedules available just yet, I've linked the summer ones right now so that for us to view. So what you'll do is you'll click on softball. First thing you'll need to do is probably scroll through all of them, find your night, and scroll through all the divisions that are a possibility, because one of these divisions is going to have your team. The way our divisions work is, or the way the team sideline works is all the teams are here, their win-loss record, run differential, streak, all that is listed up here. And you can scroll through and see your game schedule as well. Here you'll have the date for each game, time, the home and away, and then the location for your games. If you're not really sure where a field is, you can click right here, and it will pop up and give you a map of the park. We use two different parks. The first park is Camino Real Park. It's this park right here in Midtown Ventura. And the softball fields, just so you know, are one is the one that's closest to the check-in office. Two is the one that is closest to the dog park in the back. Three is the one with the big backstop and the pitcher's mound on it. Yes, we are trying to get rid of the pitcher's mound. Our second park is the Ventura Community Park, oftentimes referred to as the Kimball Park on Kimball Road. There are two fields we use for this one, which are Auto Center and Ventura Toyota. Auto Center is the one. Oh, no, scrolling away from it. Auto Center is the one with the home run fence. Ventura Toyota is the one that does not have a fence. Instead, it just has a very, very long outfield and what we oftentimes refer to as home run hill near the parking lot. Okay. So as you'll scroll down, at the end of the night, umpires will give scores to my staff. My staff will report the scores on team sideline. If at any point you think a score has been reported incorrectly, please let me know. You can just send me an email, and then I'll address it as quickly as I can. So a lot of times scores will be swapped between two teams. Sometimes the scores will just be plain wrong because an umpire wrote the score down. Just go ahead and send me an email, and I'm happy to make the correction. As the season goes on and on and on, eventually you'll get down to the point where you have a playoff schedule posted. And playoffs are always going to be at the end of the season after all the games are finished. Every team has eight regular season games played at all the different parks in Ventura. Okay. Excuse me, everybody, 1 second, please. I'm getting a lot of feedback. And I do not know from who it is from. So everyone, if you would please remember to mute yourself. So there is no feedback. Okay, I'm going to go back to sharing my screen. Okay. All right. So the next thing you're going to need to know as the manager is where the rosters are located. Most people have sent in rosters, thank you. But for those who don't and aren't really sure where they are, on this tab right here, you'll notice you can click on this link right here, and it'll bring up a PDF version of our roster. The nice thing with this roster is you can actually type in on your computer and then save it to your computer, and then you can send me that PDF file. So you type in your team name. It allows you to select your night, your division, anything else you want me to know. Put your name, your contact information, and all your players' names. I do enjoy having everything digital because it makes names easier to read and understand. However, if you're still trying to put your team together, you don't know everyone's availability, you can go ahead and fill out as much as you know and either send that to me or you can hold on to it. And then you can bring your roster with you to the first week of games. A lot of people ask about signatures, and no, we don't need signatures ahead of time. We always can get those on the first day of games as well. And that's also when we usually will sign the COVID waivers that everyone needs to sign to participate as well. So this is where the rosters are. If you can, please send it in ahead of time. If not, we totally understand, but please do be prepared to have one on the first day of games. Okay. Oh, and sorry I didn't mention it sooner, but my plan is to have schedules for softball posted either late tonight or very early tomorrow. Mhm. Scrolling down here, the next thing we're going to be mentioning is the manager's guide. Okay. So for a lot of the returning teams, this is going to be a lot of information you are already familiar with. And a lot of things that are in here, I'm only going to try to expand on the things that um, may be a little bit unclear because it is here. And now that you know where it is, you can always refer to it for any questions or issues throughout the course of the season. Here we have our breakdown of all of our leagues, how they work. Please keep in mind, umpire fees are $15 paid per game to your umpire. Some umpires will take Venmo or Zelle, however, it's not required, and some don't like it. So I'd be ready with cash in hand. Or if you know your umpire, if you're familiar with them, you can always Venmo them as well if they're okay with it. Rosters are limited to 15 players, and you should have at least 10. I recommend being in that number somewhere. People can get hurt. If you go more than 15, it is okay, but I do need to let you know ahead of time that we only give out 15 prizes at the end of each season, which means that if you have 18 players on your team, 3 people are going to not have prizes if you win the championship. And you cannot just ask me for more. We order 15 because that is the max team size. If for any reason players need to change out throughout the course of the season, please let me know. Like I said, every team gets 8 games throughout the course of the season. Games are 60 minutes, and we use a 1 ball, 1 strike count to start. Um, um, if for any reason you know you're not going to be able to attend a game, please let me know at least 24 hours ahead of time. This way, it allows me to reach out to the umpire and the other teams that are affected. We don't want teams showing up and not having opponents to play. Um, it also allows us to be able to move games around to make the schedule more comfortable for other teams as well. Also, if you give more than 24 hours notice, you will not be responsible for a forfeit fee. We have this $30 forfeit fee, which is the officials or the umpires' fees for a game, essentially that they're not working if you don't give enough notice. So if you know you're going to forfeit, please let me know ahead of time. If you aren't sure and you're really worried about paying the $30 and not having a game, then I'd take precaution and go ahead and forfeit ahead of time. I really don't like forfeits. I do whatever I can to avoid them. They are inevitable in some situations, though. Um, but please, this is my contact information. If you feel a forfeit coming on, let me know ahead of time. If for any reason a game is delayed or it isn't played because of weather or any other situation or emergency, that game will be rescheduled for the end of the regular season. This season, right now, currently that we're in, will be interacting with Corporate Games, which is a large month-long event that happens every year. Used to be in the spring, but we moved it to the fall. And there are many sports that will be utilizing some of the same fields that our regular adult sports leagues use. Sorry. Um, it may come to a point where we need to shift games to enable corporate games events to be played. If that happens, your games aren't canceled. You don't lose those games. They will be just pushed back to the end of the regular season. So you're not going to lose those games. Don't worry. All right. For the most part, we use the SMAF rulebook. However, we do have a few variations, and I'm going to go through these quickly. Right now at Camino, there are no Little League fences up. So this rule here about not hitting over the fence does not apply. And players are allowed to hit over the fence at Auto Center. Apologies. So don't worry about the fence at Camino. It's not there. You can hit as hard as you want to. Please be at least 15 minutes early to your games for check-in. It just helps with the flow of games. Games are very fast, or the time in between games isn't very long. If we're waiting and waiting and waiting for your players to arrive before we can start the game, um, it really delays the process of the game, and it makes it hard and pushes the later games back. And we don't want to push them back any more than they need to. Sometimes we're already getting out of the park later than 10 p.m. So please be on time, be ready to go. Make sure everyone on your team knows as well. And I do want it to make it clear to everybody that this rule also applies to the umpires. If you notice an umpire that isn't 15 minutes early to a game and isn't interacting with the teams ahead of time, please let me know, because this rule applies to them as well. They need to be on time. Unfortunately, I can't be at every field every day, so a lot of the times I'm not aware if they're not doing their jobs correctly. But please email me if you do notice problems. Mhm. Please keep in mind, everyone, game time is forfeit time. If you don't have 8 players ready to go by the time of your scheduled game, your game may be forfeited. And games are played with no new innings after seven, or to seven full innings, or no new innings after 1 hour of play. We do play with ties. So if both teams have the same score at the end of 7 innings, or at the end of an inning when the hour runs out, it is a tie. It goes in the record book as a tie. I know a lot of leagues don't play with ties. We do. Teams can play with a game with as few as 8 players. Um, in the past, we've used different co-ed rules, but to try to make it easier for all co-ed teams to field rosters, we say that you can never have more than 5 men on the field for a co-ed team. So if you're running short women, you can still play with the same number of men. You just can't replace your women with men. If you're short men, you can throw in as many women as you like, but you cannot play with more than 5 men. So if you only have 3 women, you can still play a game and you can still field 5 men. When a female is at bat, only a female is allowed inside of the co-ed arc, which for new teams is a 180-foot arc in the outfield. You'll notice it when you're there. If a team that should be fielding at the start of a game has fewer than or if a team that should be fielding has fewer than 8 players, the home team and away team can switch roles so that the team that has fewer than 8 players can be up at bat while they're waiting for their 8th player to arrive. However, if they finish the half inning before their 8th player arrives, the game will be considered a forfeit. If an opposing team has supplied a courtesy catcher, the catcher will be supplied for the remainder of the game or until another player arrives. I do want to make this clear to everybody that it is a courtesy catcher. It is not required by your opponent to provide a catcher if you don't have enough players to field a team. It helps speed the play of the game along. However, it is not required. However, if you do supply one for the first inning and you don't like how the game is going and you want to stop providing the catcher, that is not acceptable. Once you agree to supply the courtesy catcher, you are going to supply the catcher until the fielding team has another player arrive. If any team is caught playing with illegal players, they will forfeit their game. An illegal player is somebody who plays, either somebody who has been suspended for any amount for a game that they should not be there for, or a player who plays on another team in the same division. We try to crack down on this. It is very difficult. If you think another team is using players from the same division in their games, please let me know. Every now and then we will fudge this rule for our co-ed teams because it can be difficult to field women. However, please, if you do notice that you're going to have to borrow players from a previous team, mark an S on their scorecard so we know that that player is not trying to join your team, um, and try to cheat their way into the playoffs. Essentially, your managers are responsible for writing down players who are present for each game on the scorecard. Our umpires keep score on blue scorecards, and they also use these scorecards to track the batting order. On top of the batting order, we use these to mark attendance for our games. The top four teams in each division make playoffs at the end of the season, and team players need to have played in at least 3 regular season games to be eligible for the playoffs. 3 games really isn't a lot. It's less than half of the season. We're very lenient on how many games they're allowed. So we do try to be as strict as possible when enforcing this rule. Um, we don't want anybody to barely make the playoffs and then bring in a bunch of ringers from another division to crush to just crush the playoffs and win the championship. You should play with the team that you've been using throughout the course of the season. It's only fair to the other teams who do abide by that rule, who don't recruit from other divisions as well. This is why we ask you to write down players' names legibly and clearly. This is why we prefer to have full names on the team roster. Please do not write down nicknames. We do not know your players' nicknames. One thing we do at the beginning of playoffs is we look at all the attendance sheets throughout the course of the season. And then when players go to check in for playoffs, they have to present a photo ID. If you've been using a nickname for your player throughout the course of the season and they show up with a photo ID that does not have their nickname on it, then we may not allow them to play because we do not know who they are. We do not know if they've been in attendance. So write down your players' names clearly and legibly. My staff need to be able to read the names of the people who are in attendance, and if they can't, they may not give attendance. Here's the mercy rule. It's long. You can read it yourselves. But basically, games do end if one team is just getting beat up really bad. It's pretty wide margin early on. It has to be pretty bad, but it will get to that point. Everyone gets mercied every now and then. Everyone will mercy somebody else every now and then. Another rule that we'll touch on later, but I will just reiterate it, is drinking is not allowed in City of Ventura parks. Please don't bring coolers. Please don't bring drinks. If you have fans in attendance, I highly discourage it. If there are police officers in the area, they can arrest you if they see you drinking. So I wouldn't risk it. All right. Moving on now to everybody's favorite, code of conduct. This is something that we go through a lot. You know, it is constantly reviewed, edited, updated as situations arise. And I do want to thank everyone who participated in the summer program. For the most part, I did not notice many situations where I was forced to refer to the code of conduct or suspend anybody. My basketball leagues and soccer leagues, I was not as fortunate. So I do want to thank everyone who played in the summer for being even tempered, and if you are frustrated, clearly explaining your frustrations to me or your umpires instead of taking out your aggression on them. Typically, if people are misbehaving or cannot follow rules, there is an order to how we tend to administer punishments. We try to give a warning. If a warning doesn't work enough to dissuade somebody from acting up, they'll be kicked out of the game and suspended. If that's not enough, or if they refuse to leave, then they may be suspended from further league play. If at any point anybody does anything that is bad enough, we can skip any of these steps in the process. Um, and I'm going to go into certain situations that may come up where we frequently skip these steps. These are called major infractions, and if you are ever ejected from a game for a major infraction, you're going to receive a 1 week suspension from league play. No ifs, ands, or buts. If an umpire feels that you've crossed the line in any one of these ways, they can kick you out of the game, and then you get to have a very fun phone call with me in the next couple of days, where I get to tell you that such and such a player is suspended, and you get to say, I'm wrong, and I get to say, sorry, they're still suspended. Um, First is physical contact, basically being overly violent with another person. These are recreational sports leagues. People are there for fun. Um, Nobody wants to get into a fight. That's not what they're there for. You're also in a city park, and while you're part of a city program, you essentially also represent the program and what it stands for. And we like to think that our program stands for, fun, community, togetherness. We do not support uh, or encourage violence towards other people in any way, shape, or form. If you hit another person or attempt to take a swing at another person, or even threaten to hit another person, that is minimum week suspension. Oftentimes it is longer. Oftentimes it will be longer than 1 week. Verbal abuse, objectional demonstrations. This can be anything: causing a scene, taking off your glove, throwing it on the ground, kicking dirt, using profanity, using objectionable uh, um, um, signs towards other players. Um, if the umpire sees you doing anything like this, then they will kick you out of the game, and you'll serve at least a 1 week suspension. Unnecessary rough play. Hopefully, we don't need to. Hopefully, this doesn't come up at any point. Softball can be a physical sport. You are running bases. I've seen situations, especially in the lower levels, where players don't quite understand how base running works. Players who are not involved, defensive players who are not involved in a play, will stand in the baseline and will be in the way of a player who is running, trying to get from one base to another. It happens. Accidents do happen, and that's totally okay. But there's no grounds for being unnecessarily rough. If you do see somebody in your way, please yell out ahead of time. Please do your best to avoid them. For instance, lowering your shoulder and plowing into them would be considered unnecessarily rough. Yes, they are in your way. Yes, it's your base running path. However, there's no reason to lower your shoulder in an attempt to hurt them just because they are in your way. Remember, we're out there to have fun. Nobody wants to get hurt, and I would hate to think that you're out there hoping to hurt somebody. And last, as I mentioned it before, consuming alcohol is not allowed in the city of Ventura parks. I know it's softball, and I know people very much enjoy drinking. However, Rincon Brewing is very close to Camino Real Park, and Two Trees is very close to Ventura Community Park. If you really need to drink, go ahead and wait until after the game. Head on over to one of those two places afterward. People get sloppy when they're under the influence of alcohol. They say and do things that they definitely wouldn't do when they're sober. And people aren't as careful when they're under the influence. Drinking alcohol leads to injuries, leads to accidents, and we don't want that. And also, please keep in mind, there are families in these parks that are using the park. They are public parks. If you're out there getting sloppy, getting drunk, you remember you represent the city essentially as part of the program. And we can't have you out there causing a scene, causing a disturbance. If an umpire kicks you out of the game and you refuse to leave for alcohol consumption, they may end up calling the cops on you, and then you can explain to the cops what's going on. So I wouldn't risk it. If you receive a suspension that is longer than 1 week, If you feel it is unjust, you may appeal the process. To appeal the process, go ahead and email me, explain to me why you think the suspension was unfair, and then me and my staff will go back to talk with the umpire and discuss amongst ourselves whether or not we think the punishment is justified for the actions. I get a lot of questions about bats. We do not allow 100% composite bats in our leagues. Bats should be aluminum or wood. They also should be ASA or ISA, slow pitch softball bats. We don't allow fast pitch softball bats. We don't allow baseball bats in our leagues. One thing we do have an allowance for in terms of composite material is we do allow composite in the barrel, however, or sorry, in the handle. However, composite material is not allowed in the barrel. If you are not aware, or if you're cannot decide between a bat and you want to make sure it's not composite, you can go ahead and send me the link if it's online, or send me a photo if you have one. If I don't have an answer, I'll reach out to one of my umpires. My umpires will be able to explain to you. If you think another team is using an illegal bat, please tell your umpire. Your umpire will inspect the bat and then decide if it is legal or not. Using an illegal bat is not allowed. And any player caught a game will be forfeited by any team whose player enters the batter's box with a bat that has previously been removed by the umpire. So if your umpire says you cannot use a bat, put it away. Don't even leave it out. All right, it's not worth trying to use an illegal bat to gain an advantage. All bats should have a sticker that says either ASA or ISA on it, or I think ISSA or ASSA. If the sticker is worn down, I wouldn't recommend bringing it, because if it doesn't have a sticker, an umpire can remove it for no matter what. All right. Moving on to our classifications. A lot of people are not going to like how they are classified, and I'm sorry about that. As I was explaining before the meeting began, I think for Friday night, we've got about half of the teams are brand new. And so we always need to take those into account and try to find out where they belong. We do a lot of work to try to make sure that teams fit appropriately into their divisions so that they will have competitive games throughout the course of the season. Not every game is going to be a tie. That's what we would like to see, but it's not reasonable. It's not always going to happen. We want the plus minus for teams to be as close to zero as possible at the end of each season, but we do understand that that's not always possible. So in terms of classifications, this tends to be the general rule we follow. If you're in the pure novice division, this means that should be a brand new team or a team with very little experience. As you move up, Novice A, Novice B teams have a little bit more experience. They're teams that have probably played together before. Maybe they have one or two players who play multiple nights a week. If you're in the 1 or 2 classification, this means your team has been playing together for a long time. You probably have multiple players who play multiple nights a week, if not players who play every night or travel to play slow pitch softball. And we actually haven't used the rec classification in quite a long time, because we just don't have that many high-level teams. I'll be releasing the classifications either later tonight or early tomorrow. And I want to make it clear right now that we are not going to make any moves before the season starts. If you really do feel your team is out of classification, then you can bring that up to me, and I will tell you that we will take a good look at how your team plays in the first 2 weeks of the season. And if we think that they would be better served playing in a different division, then we will try to move you. However, moving teams isn't easy. To move a team, it's not as simple as, okay, you should play in a different grouping. We also need to have another team from the division you would play in to be able to swap with you. So just because you think you belong somewhere else doesn't mean that we're going to make it happen. We will try. Our goal is for everybody to have fun out there, to feel like you have a chance in every single game you play. That's what we want to see. That's what we want. We're going to do our best for you. My job is to try to make it so that you have a good time while you're out there. And I like to think that I do as well as I can, along with my staff. Um, and so, like I said at the beginning of the season, you may not like the classification. However, we've done a lot of work into how we place the teams. And if there are issues, we will take note of them and we will try to make adjustments as soon as we can. Add drops. If you need to add a player or drop a player, please just let me know. There is an official process, but go ahead and just email me the names. I'll adjust the roster for you. Some players ask about our tiebreak procedures. First is winning percentage. After that, it'll be head to head. So if you and another team are tied, we look at how many times your teams have played against each other, your records against each other, and your record and your plus minus against each other as well. And then what we get a lot more with softball is the head to group differential. Oftentimes we'll have three teams tied with the same record. That team A beat team B, team B beat team C beat team A. What we look at is the plus minus among all teams that are tied with that record to determine standings. Then we'll move into total runs against, fewest forfeits, because forfeits do affect runs for and against. And then last but not least, if we need to, we'll go to a coin toss. I've never seen a tiebreak go down to the fourth tiebreak procedure. That doesn't mean it won't happen. And now that I've said it, I've probably jinxed it, and it'll probably fall to the fourth or fifth at some point this season. I would be surprised if it ever fell to the seventh, but it is there just in case it ever needs to happen. And then just rounding out this meeting, what everybody is really most excited for is playoffs at the end of the season. Like I said, we play 8 regular season games, and then we play our playoffs at the end. Standings are updated weekly on Team Sideline, so you can track how your team is doing and your positioning for the playoffs. Once all scores are reported for the last week, playoff schedules will be set. The 1 plays the 4, the 2 plays the 3, and the winner of those 2 games will play for the championships at 8:45. And like I said before, we give out 15 prizes. If you have 17 players on your roster, 2 of them don't get prizes. Don't complain to me. For the playoffs, we do edit our game flow. We play 7 innings or no new after 70 minutes to give you a little bit of extra time, and because we think the games will be a little bit more competitive. And the playoffs, just to reiterate again, we do track attendance. We need to make sure that players have played in at least 3 games to be eligible to play in the playoffs. So you need to write down your players' names as legibly as possible so that my staff can read and then correctly mark attendance. Okay. At this point, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. I've gone over what I intended to for the meeting. If you have any questions, please post them in the chat, and I'm going to go through and answer the questions that have already been posted. Asked 2 seasons ago, in which you said 7 innings, but umpires said no during game time. Playoffs be time limit or 7 innings long. All games are 7 innings, no matter what. The only issue is if the time limit runs out before we get to 7 innings. Like I said, in the regular season, we play no new after 60. In the playoffs, we do no new after 70. The championship game, we leave it up to umpire discretion whether or not they want to completely get rid of a time limit to play all 7 innings. But that is a decision made ultimately by the 2 captains and the umpire. All 3 need to be in agreement. For co-ed teams, Like I said before, you need to have a minimum of 3 females and a maximum of 5 males. This means you can play 5 and 5, 5 and 4, 5 and 3. However, you cannot replace missing females with extra men. You can have subs join for a game. However, on the attendance sheet, please mark their name with an S next to it in parentheses. That way, my staff and the umpires know that this is a sub. This is someone who is not trying to pawn off as a regular participant or as a regular player for your team. Uh, as far as the auto center fence goes, 1-for-1, I honestly don't remember off the top of my head. I will have to refer, I will look this up and I will send out a reminder email tomorrow about that. This is a question that we definitely use for our corporate games teams. We do play, I forget the name of the rule, but basically if the first team to hit a home run over the fence at Auto Center cannot hit another home run over the fence, or else it will be called an out until the other team has returned that home run over the fence by hitting one themselves. I will send out an email with clarification on that tomorrow. Refunds will be issued for cancel leagues on Monday. If you paid with a credit card, it will be issued back to your credit card. Okay. Everyone who is here, again, thank you. I can't imagine there are no questions, but if there are none, then this meeting is over. Once again, everyone, thank you for being here. Please feel free to post questions. If you don't feel comfortable asking a question to the entire chat, you can select me in the chat option and send me the message privately. Otherwise, for new teams as well, if we haven't had a chance to interact, I do need some information for any of those Friday teams. I'll be making some calls tomorrow because there are a lot of new Friday teams, and I need to figure out how everybody fits in. Good question about 2 umpires for championship games. First concern is availability. We're very limited on umpires. We don't have enough people to field 2 umpires for championship games. That, and also it would cost an extra at least $15 per team, and that's just a lot to require of every team that participates. Okay. Great question from Rudy. What happens if an umpire makes a call and then changes their mind? Umpires are people, they make mistakes. I would hope that if this does happen, it means an umpire has either taken an extra second to understand a rule and have a better as to why they're making the change. It's also very possible that they realized they didn't have the best angle when they made the call, and they decided that they couldn't. There was no way they could have made the call that they did. If regardless, in any situation, umpires are people and they do make mistakes. However, they are also people, and if you have if you have an issue or clarification with any call that an umpire has made, you're always more than welcome to ask them why they made the call or why they changed a call. If they're being standoffish with you, please don't get frustrated with them. Please just take note of the situation, send me an email, and then I will follow up. Another thing that I do really want to make clear to everybody is that umpires are they are people, and they do need to be working with you. They do need to be clear with the calls that they're making. If they are rude or standoffish at any point, please let me know. I do want to make sure that they are providing the best service possible to you while you're out there. That is ultimately all of our goals for our leagues. So please, if you notice anything, let me know. Um, Time limits for championship games, like I said, it's ultimately going to be decision between the two teams and the umpire. All three need to be in agreement. If all three can't agree, then time limit is still 70 minutes, no new after 70. However, if both teams and the umpire are in agreement, I will allow there to be no time limit for championship games. Oh, Chantel, great question about the co-ed batting line. Yes, you do have to bat male, female, male, female. When writing your lineups, please put all of your men together names together in a line, and all of your women's names together in a line. Don't write them down guy girl, because if you have a different number of men and women, your lineup will get confusing.
I
Um,
think she means the co-ed line in the outfield.
oh, thank you. The co-ed batting line. So yes, so on the fields, you'll notice in the out if once you get out there, you'll notice that there is a line in the outfield. It's 180 feet past the batter's box, and there are going to be four outfielders while your team is fielding. Um, there are four outfielders while your team is fielding. Uh, one of your outfielders is allowed to stand in front of this line that is out there while anybody is up at bat. However, if a woman is up at bat, only a woman is allowed to stand in front of this line, and all male outfielders must stand behind it. Miranda, I don't quite are you Miranda? Are you asking me if umpires should post the scores inning by inning on team sideline?
No, on the cards at the field. Some umpires don't post the score, so we continually have to keep asking. And there were a couple instances last season where their memories were inaccurate, and we had to kind of dispute what they had on the score.
Oh, okay. I'll remind them that they should announce the scores after every inning, um, and that's something that I'll tell them, and they may forget. So that's just something that we're for each game. If they don't announce it, I just say to tell them. I'm going to tell them that they need to announce it, but if they don't, I just remind them. Kelsey, your record does have a huge impact in your classification for the upcoming season. The better you do, the more likely you are to get bumped up. The worse you do, the more likely you are to get bumped down. However, especially for our co-ed nights, there are a lot of new teams. So it will be interesting, to say the least, as to where teams get placed. But if you are very out of place with the teams from last season, you will very unlikely be placed with those teams again, regardless of the actual classification. Okay. All right, I'm going to end this recording.